Someone in my local area posted this photo of a cake that they got from a baker and they were unsatisfied because it had a ton of frosting. So I don't know who the baker is, but I want to help them. I'm going to show you how to stack, fill, and layer a cake, and also a rough, appropriate amount of frosting. And I say rough because some people love a ton of frosting and some people not so much. So I'm going to show you the happy medium. First, you're going to take your cake board and you're going to add a little dollop of buttercream to the bottom so that way your base cake layer sticks to your cake board and you don't have to worry about it shifting around. Then you're going to take your piping bag filled with buttercream. This is a yellow cake with chocolate buttercream. This will work for any flavor and any frosting flavor as well. This is the part of cake where you really want to have the most amount of frosting. Granted, it doesn't need to be as thick as a cake layer, of course, but you want it to be a decent amount because this is where all of the filling of frosting comes from. Do a couple of swirls around the cake till it's all nice and covered, and then you're going to press the top layer of your cake down. This would be the same thing if you were doing 3, 4, 5, however many layers. Press it down so that it is making full contact. Then you're going to take your scraper. Mine just happens to be metal. I feel like I get the most smooth application with a metal scraper, and you're going to scrape that excess buttercream along first before you grab your piping bag, and then you're going to fill in that crevice there. And remember, you can keep pressing down at this point so you are pushing any excess buttercream out. Then this is called a crumb coat. Your crumb coat is going to be thicker than your final coat, but it's still going to be thin. You will see the outside area of the top of the cake where you can see how nice and thin that buttercream is. Your crumb coat is essentially your foundation or your base layer. You want to make sure that that is nice and smooth, but also doesn't have a ton of frosting on the outside. So you're just going to continue scraping and scraping. All of that chocolate that is on my scraper, all of that excess buttercream is going to be scraped off into a bowl because we do not need it. Everyone does their frosting differently. Some people like to start with the sides like myself, and then some people like to start with the top. So for your top, you are going to add a good amount of buttercream, and then you're going to see all of that excess I am scraping off. Then you want to go around the base layer again and scrape off all of that, and then try to make it as flat as you can. Now remember, when I say scrape it off, it doesn't mean throwing it away. It's just all of that excess buttercream you want to remove because it's just going to make it too thick. Now, after the cake has chilled in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, we're going to do our final coat. You're always going to add a good amount of frosting for your final coat because you want it to be nice and smooth, but you are scraping a majority of it away. You are essentially just covering your crumb coat. You do not have to be crazy fast with this. It's not about speed. It is about making sure everything is nicely filled in and smooth and taking your time. So you can continue to add that buttercream and smooth and smooth and smooth, but it's not about having a ton of frosting on there. And it's not because you want to be cheap with your frosting. It's just because a lot of people don't like a ton of frosting. But then again, this is why I always say food is a personal preference. Some people love a ton of frosting and some people don't. I always suggest to ask your clients. Some people will say, oh my gosh, I want the vintage piping design because they love all that additional buttercream. And some people will order a semi-naked cake because they just don't like a ton of frosting. Always communicate with your client as best as you can. For this client, they wanted some white chocolate letters that say a teeny bit older and then a top and bottom border with a 4B. Please remember, this video is not to criticize or shame. I just know that when I first started baking, I wish I would have had somebody's videos that I could have watched and been able to learn from, because until somebody shows you or helps you or teaches you that you're doing something that isn't the best way or wrong, you don't know what you don't know. So I hope this helps. Okay.